Sparksuite is a software company. We make products like HOA Express and Rayco, and I'm a front-end engineer here at Sparksuite. Alan is going to lead us through a presentation on his experience with and process for developing a game using web-based technologies. And I will give it away to Alan.
All right, thank you. All right, hey, howdy. I'm Alan, and this is my presentation. So a little bit about me. I'm a high schooler who codes in his free time. I code in my free time. I started coding about 2017-ish, so pretty far back. And I learned through free code camp. Pretty good teacher, I think. And with that, I learned how to make games with JavaScript and CSS and HTML. I mainly code with the school computers, and that brought up an interesting situation for me that I'll bring up later. So some JavaScript games that I've seen. 2048 is one pretty popular one. Cookie Clicker, don't know if you heard of it, but pretty big game that was made with JavaScript. So there's pretty impressive things you can do with it. Some people have made actual engines to help in the development of these games, like Phaser.js or 3.js. Some for like 3D capabilities and even physics, which is pretty neato. I mainly use JSBin. It's a code editor, so I code with raw JavaScript. I don't use any engines. It's a pretty nice sandbox for a few different languages, similar to JavaScript. It's very convenient, which is why I use it. It's you can make copies of your code and you can share links pretty easily with people. So it makes it very convenient to be sharing games, I think. Oh, it also has an output area, so you can instantly see whatever you're working on. So that's another reason why I rather like it, I think. It's one of the few code editors that aren't blocked with school computers, which I would need. Some games I've made, so the link is up there if you want to type it in yourself. I don't know if you can read it too well, but if you can. I've made a few games in my time, which I think are pretty notable. So this is a title screen. I've learned how to make these over time, and they weren't always great, but it's gotten better. This one is an index ratio. So sometimes they don't work for the proper ratio to account for certain computers. We'll come back to that, I think. So a brief introduction to some of the coding languages I use, in case you aren't too familiar with it. HTML has a few basic tags, like the H1 tag. It's used to be making text. Usually pretty big text with H1 is stands for heading, but it ranges from 6 to make smaller headings.
Who's back to the slide?
Oh, sorry. There's another important tag, a button tag I use often for clicking events and such. Divs are a general element that are used commonly for very different purposes. Really all-purpose elements. And images are pretty self-explanatory. CSS roughly looks like this, where I mainly use the height and weight to change the size of elements and such. Positioning is used with top and left, and I can change their colors as well, mainly for the divs and such. JavaScript works mainly with variables and condition statements to do certain things. In this case, variable number is here, and it can be locked position, so to print 2. That is actively wrong. It should say 6. So this one is this statement. It checks for a certain condition. In this case, if the number is less than 3, and it'll print number is small if it's less than 3. And I mainly use jQuery to connect the JavaScript to the HTML, so make sure all the click functions and hovers, whatever I would need, work properly. In this case, it has the click function, and it will increase the number variable from the previous slide and print this. So this is how I get player input mainly. All right, the game. This is the game I'm making. Looks roughly like this. College Trackboy. I definitely completed the school side. So this is the game in all of its gamey glory. Oh, it does play. So it has music. I found out how to add those capabilities, and sounds as well. It's a simple game where you go and you beat up a triangle guy who tries to make you not beat him up. So that's the game I'll be showing today for us all. The attacking and movements. So this is the code I use for the controls of it, where I've used document body on df to get the key commands, and then with this key function, it's written here, which is just e.which would get the value of the key code. I compare to the proper key codes to get the keys in the keyboard to find the proper inputs. This code right here detects the position of the character, and that makes sure you can't go out of bounds. And yeah, the other key codes work to make sure all the inputs are working properly. So this is an early version of the game where you can just move around. The movement is pretty simple. I work off of a grid system. So every position has two variables, one for the x and one for the y, and it simply adds those values for wherever you need to move or subtracts. For the attacking, it's a complex system because the way I coded it, it has a hit detection or acceleration if you time it properly. So this variable right here, the P hits and P hit 1, these lock the attack so you can't spam the button immediately. And this one is another block to prevent any spamming. Hurt me was a function I made to actually hurt the boss, and FP up is for the FP system. So you see that bar fills up, and then it fills up for a special meter. Melee attack goes on a bit further, because it also has a timeout inside of it. So this timeout makes sure the attack finishes properly. It gets ready for a wind-up, and then attacks a bit later, so it doesn't just immediately go on. The set timeout is written here, and it has a delay made in milliseconds, so that's why it's 300. These variables are changed again, so you're able to attack again. And this is the main code I use for the anti-spam. So it has this main clause here that'll detect, this is the P1 hit, so it'll set the true earlier if you're in the middle of an attack. And if that happens, it'll put you on a cooldown to stop you from spamming the attack. So this is what it looks like inside of the code. So here, and I split it up here to make it a bit easier to read. Now for the main attack of the boss. I won't be covering exactly how they were made, but more the system I use for them. So I did the hitboxes. He has a ball attack that he has the positions much similar to the characters. And the stab attack, there's four triangles that'll come down, and that detects the Y position, X position, because it goes the entire lane. So this code here detects the, it changes the attack, chooses whatever attack you'll be using. It locks it off so it doesn't spam multiple attacks from the boss. And this code here makes sure none of the attacks are currently going on at the same time. There's a delay for the boss himself, so there's a bit of a grace period after he does too many attacks, so you have time to do things. This is the current attack. This is the actual number generation that detects which attack to use, and there's a telegraph function, so you know what attack is going on. So it's all in here, and then it goes into a switch case that'll choose the attack to use from pre-made functions. One of the attacks was the stab attack, the triangle one. So all it does is there's an internal counter that goes up every interval. I never explained the interval. So the main game works off a set interval that goes for the entirety of the runtime. It ticks every quarter of a second, and that is for the boss to make sure he's attacking on time and doing all the things he needs to be doing. Everything's updating on time. So every fourth of a second, it'll tick up this variable, the attack counter. And once it gets to 6, so once 1.5 seconds have passed, that's when the actual attack starts. And this is just the hitbox code to detect that you're in the certain area to be hit by the attack. The stab attack itself has a set of triangles that will show up, the show function, and they're moved the CSS to make sure the .css, the jQuery, to make sure they're in the right spots visually. This is the animation code from CSS. Haven't showed that too much, but with this, it's a keyframe animation. So at certain points, it'll look at a different way at CSS. It'll adjust it at certain points. Yeah, so here it is here, where you'll change the filter, bring it up, and then bring it down. And then all the attacks have a reset, so all the variables are put back to their previous state to make sure everything's working properly. And he has a phase 2, which changes the attacks. A lot of the assets are reused in the attacks, so it doesn't take up too much space. And the telegraphing. So this is such a switch statement, which detects which attack is being used. This was used back in the attack choice, so it'll put on the right telegraph. And that basically changes his face, because the trap point himself is made of CSS, so it can be easily changed mid-game. And it animates too. So if you notice the space, it changes whenever you start an attack for the telegraph. Yes, sprites. So not all the things you see were made with CSS. Some of them I had to draw by hand with the app Magma. I put in the photo key to make it into a proper PNG, and I put it into Imgur so I can actually import it in. So I upload the image on Imgur, so it's on the web. That's how I get everything working. because normally I can't just get custom images easily. That's my process. Whenever the melee attack is happening, it has dot attribute to change the source of the image. So the image of the attack is now, it becomes a sword, it changes the CSS to look right, so it's going down. Then to mimic animation, it goes into a slash of sprites and moves again to look right. Ah, yes, the item system. So there are items in the game. Over here in the equipment area, there's this set of items. You can equip them as you like, or unequip them if you so please. This is a curious use. So for the actual variable to hold all the items, I had a big object called L for convenience, and it holds the item type, WPN for this one, and then it holds an array of all the data the item needs. So it has the name of the item, whether or not it's unlocked, the type of the item, damage, range, such, the description for it as well. And then for special items, I would just hard code it in, but there's a general system where this functions. The item description, so going here, at this top bar, red one, it shows different text depending on the item that you're covering over to show how to unlock it and what it does, whether or not you have it. This is done with a hover function, and it goes to the entire class. So it's only done with one call, the hover, and it uses this to differentiate whichever box it is. So this long object call simply just gets the description from the previous object, this object. Working with objects is pretty convenient, but it's also a bit long. For equipping the item, there's a click function. This one. So the hover's here, and in the same call, you can get the click. And in clicking it checks whether or not you had the item. That's what this variable calls for. And then it goes to another variable, the LD variable, or loadouts. And that switches the numbers so it knows which item you currently have. It also changes the text to accommodates. Ah, yes, the sound design. So I got all my sounds from a website called PackDB. And something interesting about that is that the school blocks certain websites, so I had to look and find for this website to get it to work properly. So in HTML, you would go get an audio tag, and that has a link to the website. So this is what it looks like. There's a source there, much similar to an image. I have the audios, the audio links in variables. So I have this big array, so it's easier to call. And then I designate it with the same name as the ID that I had. And I use the ID to get the ID. Whoa. For the songs in the game, I set this at the start of the code to make sure they loop properly, make sure nothing's sounding wrong. And there is volume control in the settings. So go here and change anything. So there's a slider in the HTML. This one. With the input and its range. So there's general volume variables, one for the sound, one for the music, so they're separate. And then in the case of the theme, the menu theme, the sound function. Whoa. So to make sure sounds can repeat as they would need to, because normally they would just have to play all the way through before they can play it again. But with the load, you can make them start again from the beginning. That's why I do that and then have them play again. There's code down here that checks whether or not it's a song or just a regular sound effects to make sure the volume is being set properly. And it's also a default volume. Since out of a for loop, make sure it goes through all the sounds that are available. Yes, there's also save data. So I use cookies in the game to make sure it saves the items that you have. So currently that's unlocked because of the cookies. And do that, reset the page. It's still unlocked. Well, normally it would be all deleted because it doesn't save on its own. So this is this string here, this string of code. The hook is it's the detection of whether or not you have unlocked the item. But in this case is the button for the item, the square itself. L is the no, that's a pipe. So it's all separated by pipes that's to use later on. LD is the item number, and slot is the item itself. So for loading the cookies, this is all done at the start of the code. So once it all first runs. This right here. So there's the variable unvoiced. And that gets the cookies and splits it so it can be used. In the for loop, it goes through all the separations, and it looks for certain parts of the unvoiced array that's made from the splits. It goes through, make sure all the values are right, and if you have the item unlocked, it'll go ahead and use the unlock function to unlock them once again. And then you can clear cookies as well. So this is done in a curious way, where it essentially changes the expiration date to one that's already passed, and that'll automatically clear the cookies. And then from here, it reloads the page, and that is required for it to be all working properly. All right, I now notice I went a little bit fast, because that is the end of the presentation, but I didn't explain it all too well at some points. Are there any questions at certain points?
What programming language? What programming language is this one?
Language. This is all done through JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. So the HTML shows what's physically on there in the screen, all the actual assets. The CSS works to style it, make sure all the colors and positions are all right. And then JavaScript allows for input and for actual functions in the code. It all comes together to make this.
The hosting is just static files. You don't need any.
Pardon?
The hosting is just static files.
Static files?
Everything's done on the front end browser.
I think so. So it's all done through this website, and this just allows the code to run immediately so it has instant feedback.
So yeah, for each section, you pretty well explained like how you did everything, but I was kind of curious, maybe you could go back through some of the sections and speak towards anything that particularly challenged you for each step in that development process, you know, things you tripped over.
That's a good idea.
Things along those lines.
Oh, something that I should notice. That game was a remaster of an old one I made. So back in, what was it, 2021, I made this one, which is a lot more primitive and doesn't even have the title screen.
What are you trying to do in the game?
Oh,
You're
yeah.
trying to hit the
So the goal of the game is to beat up the stronger guy. And it's basically a short boss fight. That's the entire game. So you go through. You go through and you hit him with your sword, and you try not to get hit yourself.
What was your inspiration for this game?
My inspiration was a game on Kumat Games. It was by the name of Just One Box.
We're trying to get. Oh.
Are there any other features you're planning to add?
Features I was planning to add.
Yeah, anything you want to build on?
So the game's been iterated on before. It's already been patched a few times. But there are some things that can be added. So currently there's a progression through the items where you collect them all. There's just the one boss, but I was planning on adding a hard mode, so there'd be a second boss in the game. There'd be a bit more content. That isn't all too hard to arrange. It's just it takes a bit of space to actually code that.
I was curious about your development process and how you're doing it. Like, so it sounds like this is one game that you've been working on for multiple years. And is this something that you've been doing, like you want to eventually like publish it, or is it just something you do as a hobby to help learn coding skills? And if one or the other, what's the plan going forward?
So currently this is mainly a hobby to help me learn how to code. This project itself took me about a month to make. But this is after a few years of experience making many other games that are a bit lower in quality.
So you had you learned to create smaller games that did something, and then you took what you learned and then made a more complicated game.
Yeah, this is all from compounded knowledge. My first few games didn't have sound, they didn't have proper UI, they barely even had user inputs.
However, we want to set the concept of the game. So when somebody wins or lose, you want to reclass how that game is played, like how you play it.
Sorry, can you say that a bit louder?
How do you play a game, like when somebody wins or lose, like the concept of the game.
Oh, the concept of the game. So it's just a fight between this guy. It's not shown here because it's a bit not properly sized. But he has this health bar here. You want to deplete that and make sure your own health bar doesn't deplete in the meantime. That does, you enter a loose state, which brings you back to the title screen.
Oh, it's trap point. I thought this trap was away. The boss is a triangle.
Bit of a funny pun there, I suppose.
So I was still curious about what parts of the process of making the game were challenging for you. Also, do you feel like there's anything you could have done better or things you can improve on into the future? Because I know that when we make all these games, it's kind of a compounding experience where each game can be an improvement on the last kind of thing.
So, yeah, this game was my current culmination of my knowledge at this point, but like it's still primitive, I suppose. There's going to be many improvements to be made to the UI, the lackluster settings menu.
What is the most challenging part? Is the interaction, building the UI?
So the most challenging part for me was probably coding some of the attacks. Some of them were a bit hard to make. Particularly the square attack was interesting to optimize. If I remember correctly, the way it's coded, it can legally cover every square, but that's not likely to happen. So that can be made to not instantly kill you. I never showed off the magic system. Yeah, so if you fill this bar, you get a special attack that we use. The range attack, normally you can only hit him from the first 2 rows. But with this, you can hit him from the bottom. a big part of the game is the items, which I've also not shown off too well. So as you play the game, you can clear certain conditions to unlock items, and they'll have various effects, like the Magic Shield, which gives you damage resistance at the bottom 3 rows. So you'll take half damage once you're at the bottom 3 rows. Or the Spear, which has extra range with less damage than the sword. There are all small changes like that, or some of them are a bit bigger, like some of those specials. The Heal, it changes your ranged attack into a healing where you cover a bit of health.
So with what we know, we would build a game like Tetris or Pac-Man.
With my current knowledge, I could make a Pac-Man, though it'd be a tad challenging. One of the biggest problems I've run into, I should explain this, is hitboxes. So the reason I use this grid system, it trivializes the hitboxes. But with something like Pac-Man, it could use this grid system, but it'd be a bit janky. So more smooth hitbox system would be needed, and I'm not exactly sure how to make that. So that's something I could work on for future games.
Given some of the challenges you overcame when writing this new version, do you think there's any advice you could give to somebody who maybe wanted to try this out for the first time?
One of the biggest advices I can give, because I've had a few of my friends start coding and try making their own games, is to start small. Because I've seen them have big aspirations, making big games. Some of them are pretty impressive. It's using the old code knowledge, and it doesn't pan out well to be maintained. And also, whenever you have your aspirations too big, it can be too hard to make, and then you give up. I actually gave up on my first game because I didn't know what I was doing.
So what would be an easy game to start with?
Mario.
So an easy game to start with would be something similar to Poker Clicker.
Tic-tac-toe.
Tic-tac-toe's a decent one to start with. Can be a bit tricky though. Poker Clicker is the one I would start with because it's an idle game. So you simply click on a button and then you get some sort of currency.
Oh.
So in this case, it's what's it those? You click on a cookie and you get cookies. Whoa! And that's the entire game. It's a very simple game, but you can get upgrades click it for you. Whoa! How are you telling me to play the game anymore?
You know, that reminds me of the download free RAM meme.
Yeah, on paper it doesn't sound very interesting, but it's a lot more addictive than it seems. Because the main goal of an idle game that goes into the cookies and saving system I had is that it saves over time. So you would go back, you would exile the game, then come back to it later to have more set currency to get more things. That's a gross simplification. Any more questions?
So you're a high school student now.
I am a high school student now.
What are your plans going forward when you graduate from high school?
So once I graduate from high school, I plan on eventually becoming a game developer. I am building the knowledge now of what goes into games and how to make them good, because most of them have been a little bit bad. But yeah, I'm just building the knowledge in the free time I have, and I eventually plan on working on my own, set up my own company to make games.
what was your first working game?
That's a curious one. Okay, I could show it, but then you'd see what the slides is, and it's a little silly.
You can.
Well, you can just describe it.
Yeah.
So my first working game was a cookie clicker ripoff,
Okay.
where it was this without all the bells and whistles. It didn't even have a bouncing cookie. It didn't have any animations actually. So just had the cookie. You would click it. You would get your cookie currency, and then you would buy upgrades to get it for you. It also had achievements, not as grandiose as this, but it had something for you to do, something to work toward. And that is a big part of the idle games, is some sense of progression. It's done through achievements, it's done through your upgrades, and a prestige system where you can get rid of everything and start again, but you do it again faster.
So I'm curious about your learning process. I know you said like you've made a lot of these in the past. Has it been more experimentation, where you type it up as a part in time, or are there like some tutorials or resources that you can follow?
My biggest resource is probably CodeCamp to know how to code in the first place, but mostly it's been trial and error, experimenting, making games, being in the front lines, I suppose, you know, being out there, trying things, seeing how horribly it fails. I've made a fair few games I'm not all too proud of, but such happens in the learning process, I suppose.
I didn't know you were supposed to success.
Yeah. Failure is the greatest teacher, as far as I can see.
At the start of the presentation, you gave us a little teaser about why you're only doing this in school.
So it wasn't only school. It's just, I mainly have a lot of free time at school after I finish my schoolwork, and that was more going into JSPin. I did glaze over that, I realize. But no, that's why I use JSPin. It's very convenient to be used at school, give you access easily from the web, and I use things like Google Slides to save all the links, so I can share easily, and then go back to it whenever I need to. It's just also a solid code editor. I like the UI, how it all works.
Do you have any suggested reading for people that are interested in game development?
Someplace to go to learn about it?
Yeah, specifically game development, right? You mentioned free CodeCamp, but it's mostly wrapped around web
So,
development. And
the way I code is I just use like proper coding for like web development, which is a useful skill, but not very easy to get into game development with. That's why I mentioned these game engines. Like, so you can use the JavaScript like I was doing, but these engines will make it a lot easier to work with, like 3JS and Phaser.js. There's lessons for these as well, like in Code Academy had one for Phaser.
So you talked about how when you use these projects to kind of help you learn how to code, is there anything to kind of learn more about game mechanics themselves?
The most I've done to learn was to go and actually figure it out myself. I'm really curious. I tend to try figuring things out instead of looking up the answer, which is not a very useful trait, but it's fun, I think.
It's actually better because you'll come up with new things that you wouldn't have read, and also when you do read them, you're like, oh, I came up with this myself, and it's like validation.
Yeah.
That you're going in the right direction.
Too many questions. But so I'm sure that right now, you're making the games that you can make based on the experience you have. But do you have like games that you can't make yet based on your current knowledge, so that in the future, say, give yourself 10 years experience? What kind of games do you want to be making?
So currently with my current path, I'm not sure how much farther I can go with JavaScript. I might need to learn something else, which is a bit concerning. I like sticking to things I know, but
But in the future, like for example, you might do a game like Halo or something like that.
I have aspirations for much bigger games, yes. Much longer games, like Metroidvanias, games like Hollow Knight, have you ever heard of it? Or Metroid even?
So you launch to eventually own your own game company off that, but what do you see as the stepping stones? Do you see like extra education after high school? Do you see like trying to form a company with people who have other like marketing skills or other business type of skills? Or is it you want to like churn out a company for a while before striking out on your own?
So I think my biggest goal right now is to try and find some sort of internship to get a good amount of experience. And from there I can use that knowledge to make my own company. Having someone who's good at marketing would be nice if I could find that.
Well, it wasn't a question necessarily, but don't give JavaScript so little credit because it can certainly make all of those games you mentioned. So if you keep working on it, you'll get there. You can make Halo, you can make Metroid, all of those.
Okay, probably what I meant in that statement. I guess I didn't know the actual power of JavaScript, but the main thing I was worried about is with JSBit, because it's very convenient, but it also has a size limit of about 1,000 lines I found.
Oh, really?
So is your whole game 1,000 lines, or do you have multiple files that are each 1,000 lines?
So this is all one file. It's all one JavaScript file, and it does go over 1,000. I don't know the hard limits. I just found out it was roughly 1,000. So I don't know how much further I could push it, which is why I'm a bit afraid to add more. So I need to find some more sustainable system.
That's impressive.
Have you played with any other game AAA game engines like Unreal or?
I've messed a bit with, what was it, Unity and also Game Maker. Game Maker's a very useful one. It's pretty simple to use and can do rather impressive things, I think. I just mainly like doing this to get knowledge about games itself because it's more convenient to do when I'm doing stuff at school because I can't always go on like some big application like Game Maker.
Any other questions for Alan?
Not a question, I just want to say I'm super impressed with what you've created and how you managed to put together a lot of really interesting game mechanics and learning how to do all that in 1,000 lines. It's really impressive.
Yeah, there was a fair few problems of optimization that I needed to learn. It's mainly why I use the big object system, so I wouldn't have that too many stray variables. I think that helps save space or something like that. I don't know exactly how it works.
Well, everyone, thank you for coming, and this has been a great presentation, Alan. We have the next hour for networking, and in that time you can also feel free to come up and ask Alan any questions if he wants to stick around. So, thank you.
Howdy, we are Code for Y'all, where we're bringing the power of coding to everyone in Houston and beyond. Whether you're a seasoned developer or just starting out, Code for Y'all is here to inspire you and help you embark on your coding journey. Through our engaging presentations and inspirational tutorials, we aim to ignite your passion for coding and empower you to explore the endless possibilities of software development. Join us at Code for Y'all and be a part of the code revolution in Houston. Whether you're looking to start a new career, enhance your skills, or simply explore the world of coding, we're here to inspire you along the way. Visit our website at code4yall.org to learn more and start your coding journey with us. Don't wait any longer, let's embark on this exciting adventure together. Thank you for watching, and remember, at Code for Y'all, coding is for everyone. Let's inspire and code together, y'all.